Can you guys hear me? Say good morning, everyone. Awesome. It is great to be together. You guys excited to be here this morning? Are you guys excited to be here this morning? I'm really grateful I get a chance to be able to do a little bit of the introduction for today's lesson. And I'm really excited that we're here together. And I've been thinking about this idea of Christmas, right? Christmas is in 2 days. Can you believe it? All right. How many of you guys are ready for Christmas? Woo! All right. How many of you guys still got to do some holiday shopping? Don't raise your hand, man. We're the procrastinators, okay? All right, let's not put ourselves out there. Trust me, I'm right in with you guys. But this morning, we really get a chance to, the title of today's lesson is called Christmas Unwrapped. Really taking a moment to look at what was the gift that God decided to give us. And I think it's so important that we get a chance to reflect on that. And in order to do that today, I get a chance to just do the introduction because we're going to have an amazing brother who's been our part-time campus intern for this year in 2018 that's going to be preaching to us the bulk of the lesson, just really exploring the joy of Christmas. And I know that there's an elusive term, the joy of Christmas, but today we're really going to try to unpack what does that mean to us personally. This idea that joy is not based on our circumstances, but it's based on the hope and the future that God has provided for us. So without further ado, please clap it up for Bryant Torres, who's going to be preaching to us today.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Is it on? I think it is, right? I am so glad to be here. David said, my name is Bryant Torres, and I am part of the awesome, amazing campus ministry. And it saddens me because it's one of the last times I can say it. Beginning in January, I'm transitioning into I want to join. I'm getting there. Let's go, singles. You know what I mean? But I had such the honor to be able to be up here and just share about Christmas and unwrapping this idea of Christmas because I think society has really placed an image it should look like. But before we get there, I need your help. I need you guys to go back memory lane. Go back and remember the first gift you got. Go back and remember the first gift you were like, oh my gosh, I really enjoy. And it's been too long. Don't go too back. Go to the last one you remember. All right? So take a couple seconds, dwell in it, go back, remember the gift. Because when you remember the gift, what did you feel? How did you act? What were your thoughts? Go back and feel like you were a little kid or maybe you were a bit older. Remember how you acted to this idea of your gift. See, because I remember mine and I really wanted to share with you guys if that's okay. The last one that I remember, not the last one, but the best one was 2006. And 2006 was a big year because that year the PlayStation 3 came out. Any gamers? Okay, so the PlayStation 3 came out and we really wanted the system in our Christmas list, and we were, okay, God, we want this gift. And 2 weeks before Christmas, I remember coming home, and I saw a box, and I was like, oh my gosh. My brothers and I, we were like, go around, and like, did God listen to us? And I don't remember what we did or how we did it, but that year, we were able to convince my mom to tell us if it was a PlayStation 3 or not. So we went one day, my brothers and I, we planned it, and we're like, Mom, be real with us. Is it the PS3? And she's like, no, don't ask. You're supposed to, Mom, PS3. And then finally she cracked, and she told us that it was a PS3. So me and my brothers were like, yeah, we're like fist pump, we're excited. We wanted that. But then that wasn't enough. Now we wanted to play it because it was worse. Now we knew we had it, but it was underneath the tree. I don't know what happened that year, but somehow we convinced my mom to let us use what happened. Every week before Christmas, we'd come home. And then what we did was we'd go unwrap the, look it up, play, and then that's when my dad started coming. We would turn it off, unplug it, put it on. That's what because we didn't want our dad to know that we knew we had the PS3. So we did that for a week, and then we even...
Try to get the microphone out.
Oh.
Right, sorry.
Yeah. So it's a deep pocket.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so just hold it.
Yep. Oh, no.
All right.
You can put it in your back pocket just so that it can get reception.
How's that? Is that better? Can you guys hear me still in and out? Huh? I could just hold it. Yeah? Okay. Sorry about that. So then, for the whole week, we just practiced how we would feel excited when Christmas came. We practiced the whole week. We had my brother, Hector, the youngest one, be like, okay, you got to do the whole jumping and hollering. Then we had Gary, like, okay, you got to scream like you've never screamed before. And I would just be like, yeah, that's cool. That's what we thought. So Christmas Eve came, and then we drove to Nevada, because that's where my aunts and uncles lived. So we drove out there, and then what we had going on, cousins and I, is we always competed for who would get the best gift. So what we did is we put the PS3 in the back, because we're like, we got the best gift here. And we let everyone else go. So everyone was getting their present. Everyone was like, okay, wow, that's so cool. It's a game. I don't remember. But then it was our turn. And we were like, oh, it's our turn. You guys are about to get it. We grabbed the box. We opened it. And it's one of the funniest stories and memories, because I remember my brother Gary running around the living room just screaming, we got the PS3! We got the PS3! And it was such a great time, because I remember joy and happiness. But I share this because that was my last Christmas that I enjoyed in 2006. Shortly after that, my parents separated. That was the last Christmas that I remember as a whole family, because never again was it the same. Every Christmas after that, it became, hey, you have to go with your mom this year. Or, okay, this year it's your dad's turn. And then it got even worse, because then my brothers and I felt bad if we were with our dad, that our mom would be alone. Or if we were with our mom, that my dad would be alone. So then we had this idea like, hey, what if we split? My brothers and I. That one really hurt. I was like, man, it's me and my brothers. If you have siblings, like that unity you can't find anywhere. And it was tough, because ever since that day, to this day, holiday seasons are really tough for me. I hate the idea of having to pick and allocate time. I don't understand why the lights are so cool, why the gifts are great, why people look forward to the food. Actually, I look forward to that one. Hey, being honest, But it was really sad, because my Christmas was never the same. This concept of joy that I had was family together and the best gifts. And maybe today, you can relate to that. Maybe you can relate with me, and your parents also separated. Or maybe it's not that, but you lost someone this holiday season. And it's your first Christmas or your first New Year's experiencing Christmas without them. There's an empty spot on the couch. Or maybe you don't have a family that's loving or wants to get together, and you're by yourself, and you're like, I just want to fit in, and you feel lonely. Or maybe you just have a job that you're like, I literally just come 9 to 5, I clock out, and I'm done. Don't talk to me about work. And you feel depressed. Or maybe you have all these circumstances in life that want to strip you away from this joy that you remember as a child. And then this is what happens. Now you guys get to see why I have these up here in the front. Because Christmas becomes about these presents. It becomes about the lights. It becomes about what you give, what you receive, how many family gatherings you go to. It becomes about all these things when God's like, it's not about that. We're chasing joy, but we cannot create joy. We try to fill it with these presents, and do that really fast. Because at first I was like, oh, my parents are separated. I get double the presents. But reality hit when I had to leave my dad's house to go to my mom's. It was no longer about this. And today I want to unpack this, because the reality that the world puts is that Christmas and joy, it's all in these superficial things that you see. But it's not. There's so much more. So I want to invite you to unwrap Christmas with me. Are you guys ready to unwrap Christmas with me? All right. If you're ready to unwrap Christmas, say to your neighbor, let's unwrap Christmas together. All right, so point number 1. All I have for you today is 2 points, because I'm like, it's Christmas, we want to get home, we got to make tamales, we got to go whatever, but it's going to be powerful. Because the first point I want to leave you and share with you is you got to choose God's joy. This is what I mean. If you turn to Psalms 105:43, it reads, He brought out His people with rejoicing, His chosen ones with shouts of joy. So this is God talking that His people are happy and joyful. But you kind of need to know a backstory. If you read all of Psalms 105, it's about God and His people. It's about what God has done for his people. It starts off by saying like, hey, you are my chosen people. I have chosen you to have my covenant with. You are mine and I am yours. So God's like, hey, remember that you are chosen. It's not about all this stuff that you think. And then 2, God goes into saying like, hey, you were a slave in Egypt. You guys were oppressed by Pharaoh. But what did they do? They pleaded, they prayed, and God pulled them out with his servant Moses. God heard them. See, because they were so like, oh my gosh, like we're going from Egypt to the desert. So God's like, hey, I'm going to pull you out of Egypt and put you here. How would you feel if you pray to God, like, God, get me through this tough situation, and he puts you through a desert? I would be like, God, I should have stayed home. Or I should have stayed where I was at. At least I had a home. At least I had water. But God's like, no, rejoice. Rejoice because I am with you. See, because joy is not dependent on the circumstances. That's what God had to teach the Israelites. Like, hey, yes, maybe you were in prison. Yes, maybe you were slaves. Hey, you're in the desert wandering and you don't know what's going to happen. But joy is not dependent on the circumstances because I am with you. And that, I'm like, man, that relates so much to us today because maybe we're going through a desert. Maybe the holiday season is not as joyful as it looks. You know, because the world, the pictures, the movies, it painted like a pretty awesome time. But maybe you're like, no, like, this has been the worst holiday season. But God's like, it doesn't matter what you're going through. Joy is not found in that. It is found in me. And now maybe you're just like, okay, but I'm not going through a storm. I'm actually pretty good. I love holidays. I'm like, well, cool. But before that, we got trying to unwrap Christmas, right? So when you realize that, okay, it's not about my circumstance, you can start taking off this fake paper that it says, oh, it's the coolest toys. It's the coolest gadgets. It's the best clothes. It's what this, that. It's not about that. You can start taking it off. You can start unwrapping it. But we're not there yet. We're almost there because we still got a ways to go. So then you got to see, okay, what else do we need to know? So we know that it's not based on our circumstances. What else is it based on? And I love this story in Acts 8. In Acts 8, it talks about the Ethiopian eunuch. Now, if you guys know this story, he worked for the queen. So that probably meant that he was wealthy. It probably meant that he was powerful. He had say. He can do anything. He had property. I don't know to what extent. But this man probably had everything. Probably had everything. Maybe things that we don't have. So you're like, okay, he should be pretty happy. But he wasn't. And you read in Acts 8:39, it says, when the Spirit came up out of the water, when they came out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord suddenly took Philip away, and the eunuch did not see him again, but went on his way rejoicing. So what do you see here? That it wasn't his money. It wasn't his possessions. It wasn't his power. It wasn't where he was at. He found joy. He found joy when he found God. It was not in presence. It was not in this season. The eunuch was like, no, oh my gosh, I need to get right with God. I need God because that is true joy. Joy is not dependent on what you have. Because we can go this whole holiday season, man, this is what I wanted, this is what I needed, but I'm not going to be joyful. Or man, maybe I burned the turkey, so I don't have a good turkey. Or maybe you do a ham. Or I remember one story to share again is one Christmas we tried to do tamales. They burnt. They were bad. We couldn't even save them. But what's funny is we chose to, I can go on for days. I'll stop there, But we burned them, and we were like, we could have put our joy in that. And maybe you have your family traditions that you're yourself going like, if it doesn't go this way, it's going to be bad. But God's like, no. It's not about the circumstance. It's not about what you have. It's about me. God's like, when you're able to take this gift right here, you're going to love this, what's inside. You can take off that. It's not about the presents. It's not about where you're at, what you have. When you finally get rid of all of this, you're able to see what's truly inside the bag. Who wants to see what's inside the bag? Do you guys want to see what's inside the bag? All right, because this is what God's saying, like, hey, when you get rid of all of this and you clear out the space, you can now finally see what I have in store for you. Now you can finally see what the present is. And you guys said you're ready, right? All right, so this is what it is. An orange. Would anyone like this orange? All right, I'm going to try to throw. Oh, there you go. And now you're kind of like, oh my gosh, Bryant, like, you really built this up, but you're talking about this orange? Let me tell you what it is. Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, kind, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. But the fruit of the Spirit is joy. What does that tell me? What do I get out of that? Is that we are meant to receive joy. We cannot create joy. We try with gifts. We try to have it at home. But God's like, no, only I can give you joy. All you're meant to do is you're just meant to enjoy it. That's a good naranja, orange, sorry. Like you open it up, you see the juice. That's what God can give. We can give imitations of oranges, of a fruit, but only God can give the true fruit. Amen? Because now, people can't give joy. Only God can give joy. And I want us to start unwrapping this because the world tells us this is what joy is. It's about the holiday stress. I went shopping and I saw madness in the stores. People pulling things, people fighting. No, okay, I didn't see that, but I saw it on the TV. It wasn't that bad because now Amazon Prime, they do such a good job that you don't really go in the store. But you just see all these videos of people just going crazy over the holiday. But it's not about that. God's like, hey, it's in me. It doesn't need to be about that. But what happens after a while? What happens when you get the gift? So let's say you're like, okay, I am ready to receive the gift. I want to choose the gift. I'm not going to choose the gift that the world tells me I need or I want. I'm going to choose the gift of God, of joy. Well, what happens after every gift? You get over it. Am I right? Going back a bit, remember your first gift. Do you still have it with you? Raise your hand if you still have that first gift that you got. Okay, we got a cut. Wow, that's amazing. We have like 4 or 5. But the rest of us, we moved on from it. Every gift, whether it's the coolest thing. I remember one of my other Christmases, I got this Batman castle, like this Lego thing. It was awesome. I would play with it every day. I have no idea where it went. I have no idea. Because like every gift, we get over it. So now that you want to choose God's joy, now my second point is you have to remain in God's joy. And that's probably even harder than choosing because we always want the same thing. Or then this is where like, okay, I have tried to remain in God's joy. I've chosen it, but my life's still not as good. It's kind of bad or it's getting worse. Well, there's such a great example in the Bible of that, of Paul, the Apostle Paul. Has anyone here heard about Apostle Paul? This guy did amazing things, but what we also know is he suffered for God a lot. He got converted and Jesus was like, this man will know the troubles he has to go through because of me. And man, he had shipwrecks, he was flogged, he was in the verge of death many times, and one thing we see was that he was in prison. And the book of Philippians, it's such a powerful book because he wrote that book during prison. He was in jail. Imagine yourself in jail. Would you be able to write a whole book to God and how joyful you are? Why? Because it's so tough. I would be like, no, I'm mad at you, God. Don't talk to me. I'm not going to write to you. Because that's where I was at. That's what I struggled with myself. My dad stayed faithful, and he was a disciple. But from 16 to 21, I went off and did me. I tried to pursue this joy. I didn't even choose this. I couldn't even remain in it. I went to college. I got kicked out. By the time I got kicked out, I love to share because I had a .52 GPA. That was horrible, and I love to share because now, this past semester I got a 3.5, and now my GPA is a 2.9. It's just so crazy because I had to go through all of this. And maybe you're also like, I've tried to stay faithful. I've tried to stay joyful, but it's so hard. Point number 2 is probably hard. Remain in God's joy. And again, Paul is such a great example because in the book of Philippians, he wrote about joy 16 times. He mentioned it 16 times, or rejoice, or any form of joy. Now, that book is only 4 chapters long, so it's got to be important. And this is what he says in Philippians 3, chapter 3, verse 1. Whatever happens, my dear brothers and sisters, rejoice in the Lord. I never get tired of telling you these things, and I do it to safeguard your faith. Whatever happens, my dear brothers and sisters, rejoice in the Lord. Whatever happens in your family, whatever happens at work, whatever happens between your siblings, whatever happens between family, rejoice in the Lord. Paul understood this, like, hey, I am in prison, but I'm still writing to you. No matter what happens, rejoice in the Lord. Because he knew that it's not about you, it's not about him, it's about God. If he focused all about him, he could have turned negative. He could have chosen to not love God. He could have chosen to give away the joy. But Paul's like, no, I'm going to choose to stay in joy, and I'm going to remain in the joy. And it's so crazy because I think that's where we can be challenged. That's what I am challenged the most in this holiday season. Like I shared, some people think that I'm the Grinch during Christmas. I don't like the lights. I don't like the gifts. I don't like the food. It's just a hard time for me. But then I think about, it's not about me. It's about God. That's the spirit that we need. That's the gift that God can give you that no gift can give you. It's crazy. And this is what helped him see it. This is what helped him see, like, I need to remain in God. In Philippians 3:3, just going down a couple of verses, he reads, "For we who worship by the Spirit of God are the ones who are truly circumcised. We rely on what Christ Jesus has done for us. We put no confidence in human effort." And this relates to last service, last Sunday if you were here. It's all about Jesus. Paul understood that Jesus came down here to give us salvation, to give us redemption, to give us compassion, to give us love, and you can fill in the blank. And one of those things is that Jesus came to give us joy. Jesus came to take away our worries. Jesus came to take over what we think we can control. And Paul is like, hey, you need to remain in Christ. Why? The joy of God's people is not determined by their struggles, but by their future destiny. That is what Jesus is about. Jesus doesn't tell us what we'll do. Jesus doesn't tell us what you'll accomplish by the time you pass and you die. Jesus doesn't tell us anything. All he does is say, hey, your reward is in heaven. It's not here. It's not a gift. It's not what you think. Your reward is heaven. And when you cling on to that, you get this joy. You get this hope that no matter what happens, I'm going to choose to remain in joy. See, Paul understood it and in jail. And if you could do that, why can't we? What keeps you? What are you holding on to? What are you trying to fill this gap with that nothing will? See, because only Jesus can give you this hope. We only know how to think about now. We struggle with thinking about eternity. When's the last time you thought about eternity? That's a weird concept. I'm like, well, everything I know comes to an end. But Jesus is like, no, hope in me. Because if you hope in me, I will give you hope, and you will have this joy that no one can rob you of, no matter what circumstance you're going through. There's a video I'd like to share with you guys. And before I give a backstory, here it is.
When a passing ship spotted the tiny hut adrift in the blue abyss, the crew thought surely radio call for help couldn't have come from here. But as 18-year-old Aldi Adelaine climbed the ship ladder, Scottish crew couldn't survive. He survived, lost at sea for 49 days. Fragile and famished, the teen managed to stay alive on the fish he caught and rainwater he wrung out of his wet clothes. Off the coast of Indonesia, the teen's fishing raft became untethered from its anchor. Drifting 1,200 miles for 7 weeks, a story of survival making waves after his rescue near Guam. Along the way, he thought of death, but kept his faith by reading the Bible. This is the third time the teen's raft has broken free at work. Surrounded by family, Adelaine is back on shore, where for now says he'll stay anchored. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
Can you believe that? Can you picture yourself being in a raft for 49 days? I rode in a car with 14 people for 3 days and I was over it. This guy, he was 17, 18. He was by himself. But what kept him alive was his belief in Jesus. See, he could have chosen death. He could have chosen his circumstance of like, man, I'm stuck here. He could have chosen what he was given to define him. But what did the video say? His belief in God. His belief in Jesus. And that's what the true gift of joy is. See, when you choose the joy of God, it can get you through the circumstance like this young man. He remained in it for 49 days. After a couple of days, if things don't go, we give up. We stop praying what we prayed for. We stop saying, like, God, help us. No, we get overcome by our circumstance, by what we have, what we don't have, that we give up the fruit. We give up the fruit of joy. But this man, I'm like, man, I was watching this video, David shared with me, I'm like, I got to share it. Because this is joy that you can have if you choose God. It kept them alive for 49 days. This joy can keep you alive during this holiday season. It can revive you even. But you got to choose it and you got to stay in it. Now, to close off in faith in action, I have a couple steps for you. Be the eunuch. In the story of Acts 8, you see how he just received and he saw God and he was like, I need to get right with God. He understood that God can give joy. If you're here for the first time, study the Bible. Find this joy. Find this new joy that will fill you and even give you more. Stay focused. We got to remain in joy. So this Christmas season, stay focused on what really matters. And that's Jesus and the hope that he can give you. Then, a simple one's like practice choosing joy. When you go to a home, when you have people, give the gift of joy that God has given you. Like, there's no better gift than you sharing about what Jesus has done for you. That is true joy and the true gift of hope. And if you're here, I encourage you, come back next week. Keep coming here and dwell in God's word, in God's place, and see what he can do for you. Thank you. To God be the glory.
Brian. Awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but I definitely needed that message, amen. Needed to remain in the joy that Christ offers. And thank you again, Brian, for such a wonderful job. Let's give Brian another round of applause. Appreciate that, Brian. I'm just wondering what was still in the other gifts, you know what I mean? I saw one, but I'm wondering what the other two were. No.